Cape Town Partnership came about in 1999. I mean, you'll recall in South Africa at the time, because of the eve of democracy, a lot of the downtown centers, which is actually the CBDs, they started declining. Some of them are still are. I mean, if you compare Cape Town to Joburg, to Durban, you can see that Durban is still not quite managed to arrest its decline yet. So in Cape Town, we were experiencing the same problem. A lot of corporates and tenants, major tenants in town, were moving into malls. So the CBD was starting to really go into crime and grime. What happened was there was a conversation between the city of Cape Town and the property owners within the CBD, and the question was, what do we do to rescue this? They decided to form a partnership, and out of that we were born.
Okay, the partnership is a non-profit organisation, so how do you derive your finances?
We derive our finances from our partners. A major partner is the city of Cape Town, which gives us an operating grant. The other partners are the property owners and other private sector bodies that give us a contribution. But we also go out and seek more funding on the basis of projects. So we've got the Swedish grant, for example, for our low carbon project, and we've got the lotteries. We're supporting our City Hall Sessions, which is a music program. So we try and in fact we got some funding sources like Province, for example, who contributes towards a specific project.
I was going to ask you about that, because we have a situation where we have provincial government and we have central government, which is for the whole country.
Yes.
Central government has no part in this with you?
No, but on my board I've got both province and city, as well as private owners, as well as civic organizations.
How did you come personally to be involved in this? How did you become the CEO?
Okay. I've been working now with the Cape Town Partnership for like 10 years. I'm trained as a professional town planner. And so I joined the Cape Town Partnership in 2001, I think. And when I came on board, really it was going back to my profession, because for a while I really didn't focus on town planning issues. And from there I've just grew in from my position as a program manager to becoming a deputy CEO, and then taking over eventually from Andrew Borain, who is now moved on to head up the Economic Development Partnership.
Before we move on a little bit, I'd like to ask you about this regeneration of Cape Town City. How far does that stretch? I mean, what does it encompass? Just the city bowl?
Okay.
Or is it going out towards the Atlantic seaboard and through?
Okay, so when we started, we were focusing on a very small space, which was the same boundary as a CCID boundary, which means basically those that are paying the levy, that's who we were servicing. And then in 2006, we then stretched it from Greenpoint, bottom of City Bowl, to Salt River. Because in order to be able to safeguard the economy of the space, you need to have a much larger area, strategically speaking. We then again reviewed that. We're now talking about the Table Bay district, which starts, on the other side in Hout Bay, involves most of the Cape Town central areas, and it stretches to Maitland and Muizenberg.
Let's move to design and the fact that now Cape Town has been awarded the Design City of the World in 2014, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. You went against Bilbao in Spain and Dublin in Ireland as the last three out of 117 cities, is that correct? Yes. Were you there at the selection?
Yes, I was, because I was heading up the bid. It was quite a tense moment. Everybody wanted it. I mean, all three cities were desperate for it, because you must remember, there's such a cacophony of noise around cities at a global stage at any leverage that can allow you to be heard, a little bit more better than the other cities is what everyone needs. So Spain, as in Bilbao, really wanted it desperately because of their economy. The Irish, same thing. Cape Town, of course. And it's quite tricky to understand why Cape Town would be well-designed capital when you compare to the architecture of Bilbao, for example. With their Guggenheim Museum and their very serious attention to architecture that goes back centuries. When we bid as Cape Town, we decided to bid from our perspective. It needed to be relevant for a city in Africa and a city in South Africa in particular. So we chose to look at it as a transformative process, to look at transformative design, and to look at what the future can be through design rather than what the past has been. And so our bid was more all heart. Africa is a very relevant continent. I mean, if you can find solutions through design to what Africa is facing as a continent, I mean, the future really looks bright for everyone. And so I think it's not an accident that we got the bid. We actually are in a relevant city, in a relevant continent, and we have a relevant narrative to put forward to the world. There's been many solutions. I mean, the thing about design is that creativity seems to come through when there's lack. When you have lack of resources, you find solutions through design to be able to find a way forward. So there's many solutions that have been found in Africa and in South Africa. However, they have no way of competing globally because there's no platform to showcase them. The one thing that we have as Cape Town, which is a sad story, is that we produce a lot of talent and it leaves. Because people believe that you can't start a creative career in Cape Town, you have to go to Joburg for that. So now we're able to retain that young talent. We're able to have more and more creative businesses. In the central city alone, in the last count, we had over 1,500 creative businesses. And they've chosen to locate here because this is a space that allows them to be able to earn a living. Now, being a well-designed capital allows us to be able to attract even more of that kind of business. We always talk about job creation, we talk about entrepreneurship as a strategy. Creatives themselves are the best entrepreneurs.
How serious is the world taking us, though?
It's serious. I mean, we've now made the #1 in New York places to visit. I mean, I sit on the International Downtown Association board, which is in America.
I'm not knocking this. I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate here. It's very nice to say #1 tourist destination, but then we have what God gave us. The mountain, the sea, and all that. Yeah. What is it you have done that you feel that makes the world sit up and say, well, this is a good destination to come to? Because it really is bottom line business, isn't it? The amount of bums in seats, beds and used and so on, which is beyond tourism now we're talking.
Yeah, it is. In fact, it's more than tourism. I think one of the biggest challenges we've got is that our tourism brand is much stronger than our business brand. And this gives our business brand a leverage, okay? For example, the Cape Town Partnership, we are now launching an app which allows people who come to Cape Town to find these businesses without having to look around and you know, have to connect through the internet or something. So that already is a huge plus. There's a lot of other people who are doing a little bit to be able to contribute to what Cape Town can offer in this. We now are able to showcase Cape Town talent and Cape Town products. They're creating a market for them. So I think we are starting to get this serious consideration that was always due to us, but we've always been seen as a place to come, as a place or a city to come and just have a holiday rather than do business.
I've got to ask you a question. It's the one question every single visitor to South Africa asked. That highway that finishes and goes nowhere, what's going to happen to it? I mean, it's that one stretch that has to be joined up, and it would mean an awful good overflow of traffic away from the city centre that needs to go around it. Is there anything on the cards for that?
I think leave it unfinished. This is the thing about the Cape Town.
It's going to stay unfinished.
If I had anything to do with it, I would leave it unfinished. It's the narrative of Cape Town. Why should we finish it? I mean, it's fantastic to see that we are able to publicly display our mistakes as Cape Town.
I'm not sure I understand the logic of that one.
There's many ways of using the freeway without finishing it. Personally, I don't believe the car is king. So finishing it just allows the car to have a faster route out of town and in of town. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for better public transportation.
But then you've got to have better public transportation.
Of course.
Better parking facilities.
Absolutely.
Cost effective.
Yeah, I agree. Again, the legacy of the World Cup. Through that, we now have the My City bus that's rolling out. We have more infrastructure being planted, being invested in. I mean, you can just see the My City bus stations. So why should we finish the freeway? You can turn it into a restaurant. You can turn it into a High Line. New York has a High Line. There's many ways of using that freeway. It doesn't have to belong to cars. Because we've done something quite weird in Cape Town. We've choked our city and cut ourselves away from the sea. You are in the central city, you don't even look at the sea because you can't get to it.
There is talk of more building on the foreshore, isn't there?
It's one of the few places where you can still go high because it doesn't have the heritage core, and I do agree with that. I mean, you can't take away the heritage buildings and create these kind of buildings in front of us right now. So you have to build on the foreshore because we have this squeezed space between 45-degree angle between the mountain and the sea. We don't have a lot of land.
Can I just ask you what your biggest wish is for
what,
the partnership? Yes.
For the partnership?
Yes.
I think we've been successful as a partnership to be able to rescue the CBD and what it is right now. But what we do need is more and more Capetonians looking at the space as a place of choice. Of course, it's difficult to start there if you don't go back to history. So our strategy now is to put people first, to be able to have a city that reflects that the culture of its own people as Capetonians, and also be able to provide the kind of lifestyle and reception that an ordinary Capetonian would expect from its own city. And so we're trying very hard to say, Capetonians, we need to be able to create with you the kind of city that you want to see. It's not enough to just be livable, you have to be lovable as a city.